Hey there everybody, Mazarok here, and today we've got Protection Warrior changes. They've come out with a blue post on changes and nerfs and weird buffs and all of that fun stuff for Prot Warrior, and let's face it, they've been overperforming pretty well on beta so far. They've been able to solo heroic dungeons and in leveling gear and just do massive damage. We all knew they were going to get reined in, but let's see and talk about some of the changes they had made into the class and the spec tree, because there's some kind of weird stuff to go on, right? There's some things happening. Before we get started, please like, comment, subscribe, all of that fun stuff. It helped the algorithm out. 3,500 subs. Thank you so much, everybody. Flabbergasted by all of the support. As well as, there's a Twitch link down below if you want to watch me stream, a Discord link if you want to continue these Prot Warrior conversations anymore, or just come on in and have a good time, as well as a Patreon link if you wish to support me directly. Alright, so let's get into the class tree changes, but just before, let's read this little blue post here. This week, we've mostly been fixing errors and tweaking things for the class, arms, and fury trees. We're happy where they stand, blah, 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 fury and arms. We focus more on the protection tree this week and providing more details down below. Bitter immunity. This one's got me I don't understand this one. Once again, made more easily available, I'm assuming going up the tree, but now no longer clears bleeds. What? So it is now a 3-minute cooldown for one talent point, which will restore 20% health, and instantly remove all diseases, poisons, and curses, because it will no longer do bleeds. Dispels exist in the game. Like, paladins, druids, and monks can do a variation of those things every 8 seconds. Is it 8 or 10 seconds? It doesn't matter. It's a matter of seconds. Shamans are getting these like anti-poison totems that will clear entire party members of poisons. We can't even have bleeds. There's a 2-minute racial in the game right now, 2 of them for dwarves, that remove bleeds on a 2-minute cooldown, and while it is considered insanely good, I don't say it's overpowered, so why can't warriors have a 3-minute bleed clear? Because this is essentially becoming a dead talent. That's all this is becoming, is basically a dead talent with a 3-minute cooldown, 20% health pot that will occasionally cure diseases, poisons, and cures, which is going to be so insanely niche when you're like, oh wait, this one dungeon has a disease and my healer doesn't have a disease dispel. I'll take bitter immunity. Like, that, to me, it kills the talent, because bleeds are one of the most, like, one of the worst things for a Prot Warrior to deal with, and is one of the reasons why I absolutely, like, Halls of Atonement is one of my most fun dungeons to run. I loved Halls of Atonement. But I didn't like it on my Prot Warrior because of all the bleeds. Bitter immunity on a 3-minute cooldown, mind you. You're not even going to have this every pull. Can't do bleeds anymore? I don't know. I don't know why that is. I don't get it. First one, straight up, don't get it. Reinforced plates, fixed a bug. Battle stance now reduces the effects of roots and snares by 10%, which was 15%. That's fine, being reined in. Berserker stance now reduces the effects of incapacitating effects by 10%, was 15%. That's completely fine. Inspiring presence, inspiring presence just makes the effect clear. Whatever. Spear of Bastion gets a rage nerf. It grants 20 rage, was 25, which is fine. Elysian Might now extends the duration of Spear of Bastion by 2 seconds, which was 4. This is actually a pretty hard nerf to Elysian Might, but okay. But they did buff Piercing Verdict, which the damage and rage bonus was increased to 50%, which was 30. This was because, like, this choice node between Elysian Might and Piercing Verdict was honestly not a choice node. You were just always taking Elysian Might every single time. This might make it more competitive. We'd have to see numbers. But yeah, we'd have to see numbers, but you know, is what it is. Kind of lame sauce, but it is kind of balancing things out, right? Endurance training for Fury, which whatever, don't matter. endurance training, arms, and protection. Now increases stamina by 5% and reduces the duration of fear sap and incapacitates on you by another 10%. Or just by 10% in general. Cool. Thunderous Roar. This is a change I actually really do like. Now deals damage in a 12-yard radius, which was a frontal cone, and also generates 10 rage. I don't know, if I'm just reading the ability Thunderous Roar, I feel like it's all around me, but I guess you can also go like Skyrim Dragonkin, like, you know, the big booming voice in front. So there's two different ways to look at it. I do like the 12-yard radius more than the frontal cone. I think that is actually a really, really good change. And it also generates 10 rage. Very nice. Good. Love to see it. Shockwave now generates 10 rage. I'm going to talk more about Shockwave. I'm doing a pros and cons, like big picture for the tanks for Dragonflight, and I'm going to talk more about Shockwave in that one, so I'm just going to kind of let that one sit there. Avatar now grants 15 rage, which was 20. Small nerf there, but that's fine. Crushing Force for protection. The tooltip should now correctly update, granting 5% increased critical damage per stack. Great stuff. Barbaric Training, protection, revenge damage reduced to 30%, which was 40. Now, this is not the only nerf to revenge, but revenge was also dealing so much damage by a friggin' country mile, it wasn't even funny. So it absolutely makes sense for them to hone it in a little bit. A few more developer notes here for Protection Warrior in particular. So they've started to focus a little bit more on the tree. First thing they say here. They're very happy with how Protection Warriors are playing, but obviously overperforming in terms of survivability and damage, which is 1000% true. They don't intend to make large structural changes to Protection Warriors trees. Good. Our goal for the next weeks are mainly around bug fixing, tuning, and making the bottom left and right sides more appealing. This is true because Shield Charge and Ravager were nice, but not necessarily with everything we're getting from the class tree, and all the Protection Warrior Spec tree itself has a ton of good stuff that you don't necessarily feel bad for, like, loading it up in the middle and just not going down the sides at all. So, because there's a ton of good stuff in there where you could absolutely just avoid certain, like, the left and the right. So, I see where they're coming from here. I really do. They made changes to the baseline ability Vanguard because they need to bring down the survivability, which is fair. Let's get into the Protection Warrior tree itself for the changes that they're making. Now, Deep Wounds should now trigger Blood Surge correctly. This is a fix, because Blood Surge, your periodic bleed effects have a chance to grant you 5 rage. Proc chances around 20%, so you'll have a Rend, and you'll have Deep Wounds. Honestly, really good. I like it. Good stuff. Titanic Throw, fix an issue, whatever. Heroic and Titanic Throw now have a 3-second cooldown. I can understand a cooldown on Titanic Throw, but I do not like having a cooldown on Heroic Throw. I actually do use Heroic Throw quite a bit in Mythic Plus, just for, you know, if I have to kite for anything, cutting off necrotic stacks, I don't have to lose any threat on anything from having to kite from their bullshit affix called necrotic. I don't like the fact that this has a 3-second cooldown on Heroic Throw alone. I totally understand and get why Titanic has that cooldown. You could even justify a slightly higher cooldown for it, like 4, 5, 6 seconds. I can understand that. Like, that I can get behind. Heroic Throw by itself, I don't get it. Auto attack damage reduced by 20%. Sucks, but fair. I mean, what do you do when you hear the nerf like that? You're like, ah, crap, but okay. Brace for Impact. The Aura Tooltip should now correctly reference Shield Slam. Now increases Shield Slam's damage by 5% per stack. Was 10, but lasts for 15 seconds, which was 9. So if we go to Brace for Impact, using Shield Slam increases your block value by 10% and the damage of your Shield Slam by 10% for 9 seconds. So this is going to be 5% for 15 seconds. So a nerf to the damage itself, but a buff to the ability and the, like, you know, to the actual buff itself. I do like this. These are good ways. These are good nerfs that don't decapitate a class, right? Like, if you take these things in mind, you make the buff easier to maintain and, you know, stack up, and you get it all the time, and it's just easier and better. So now you're going to be able to get more shield slams off with that proc. Spike Shield now causes high threat. This is actually a very interesting Very interesting change, actually. So Spike Shield, blocking an attack, deals 30% of attack power physical damage to the attacker. Obviously, we know with Warrior, you're always blocking attacks, but it's now going to generate high threat. This could be... Honestly, the damage to Spike Shield from what I was seeing wasn't terrible. Like, it wasn't bad. The problem was there was so many other good things in this tree that you were like, maybe not put a point in there. So, something to think about. They're actually putting effort into Spike Shield, and one of the things that was actually sad in Shadowlands that they didn't put was some sort of, like, shield enchant. Like, because I remember having something like Spike Shield as an enchant in Cataclysm, which, honestly, it didn't deal a whole lot of damage, but it was nice to have. So, something like this, really working towards this, I like it. Good change. New talent, Dance of Death. If your Ravager helps kill an enemy, your next Ravager lasts 2 seconds. I'm hoping that this is a typo and should say longer, because if your next Ravager only lasts 2 seconds, that sounds like a hard nerf. Ravager's damages... I don't want my Ravager on a 1.5 minute cooldown to only last 2 seconds, but I'm assuming it's a typo. And it's 2 seconds longer, and also deals 20% increased damage. This is one of the things where they said they wanted to make the left and the right side of the tree feel like you'd want to go down there more. That's a nice change. I like this Dance of Death. I actually do like it. This is making me think to go down the other way. Champion's Bulwark should now add to existing shield block durations. Champion's Bulwark. So, shield charge grants you shield block, revenge, and generated an additional 30 rage. But what Champion's Bulwark is doing is now adding to your shield block duration. So before, I'm assuming it kind of like reset it, or like whatever have you not. So this is just a nice quality of life. Great addition. There's another change that we're going to get down to at the end. Actually, well, you know what? We're going to skip right to it now because we're here. And this is what I also really like this. Shield charge no longer has a minimum range. I really do like this. So you can immediately charge, shield charge, whatever have you not through a pack, and just gain a bunch of rage and a bunch of good stuff. But this is actually a really good change. This allows you to have a good portion of the reprisal playstyle without the downsides of having to maintain your shield block. Because I've covered this in another video, I actually do like the Legendary Reprisal. What I actually hate about it is how you're forced to play around it just to live. Like, if you don't, you're just going to die, and that makes it a default pick in 90% of the scenarios, and that sucks. I don't like that. But this is actually now looking like a really, really fun ability. Not to mention, we have to remember Shield Block is a 4-second stun, and that's one thing I really like about it. Not having a minimum range on that, chef's kiss. Boom, ba-dum, bum, boom. Juggernaut now has a maximum of 10 stacks for protection, but lasts for 20 seconds. Let's go read Juggernaut here. Execute increases damage dealt by Execute by 3%, stacking up to 15 times. So now it's 10 times, but lasts for 20 seconds instead of 12. This is a good nerf. That's a good change. I like this Juggernaut change. Massacre, updated Massacre visuals. Cool. Enduring Alacrity now grants 1% haste per rank was 2. Which is this one right here. I mean, whatever. Kind of sucks. I would have, like, I don't understand how 4% haste versus 2 really breaks anything. I really don't, but kind of is what it is. Focus Vigor now grants 1% critical strike chance was 2. This is along the same lines of Enduring Alacrity. I don't understand how 4% crit to 2% crit, how that's such a huge game changer, but is what it is, right? This is the change to the Vanguard. So this is the passive that you get for being a tank. Increases your stamina by 30% was 45. Increases your strength by 70% of your total armor value was 100, and reduces the damage you take by 5% was 15. Now, one of the things we have to remember about Vanguard is through the series of Shadowlands, through all of the patches and everything, they've been buffing this like crazy for multiple tank specs, right? Multiple tank specs have been getting buffed to their whatever version of Vanguard they have to make them more in line, because tanks were an actual problem after the gutting of BFA. Tanks got gutted, and survivability was an actual concern. in more trivial content. Now we're at the point in like Season 4 where tank survivability is not a problem. It's whether your DPS can do the damage and you have enough kicks and things like that to be able to do the content that you're doing, but tank survivability isn't necessarily the problem in 70 to 80% of the cases, right? If you're playing your tank right, you're not going to have that many issues, where if you remember Season 1, your tank just getting global happened all of the time, and it really didn't matter what tank you were playing. So these are clawbacks to what they gave for the problems that were in Shadowlands. And we have to remember the Dragonflight tree, especially for Prot Warrior, is fixing so many problems that Prot Warrior has had throughout Shadowlands. So we're gaining way more power. So this change to Vanguard is, I'd say warranted. I don't know warranted, but is understandable. Like that, I think that's the better term to use. It is understandable and it makes sense. I'm okay with this because of how much more stuff we're getting. Revenge. Damage reduced to 53% was 63. We knew revenge nerfs were coming. That's fair. Shield Slam. Damage reduced to 80% was 85. See, these are all very small and very targeted nerfs. I like where they're going with this. Totally fair. We're getting Shield Slam buffs across the board. Fine with it. Punish. Shield Slam now deals 10% increased damage. Was 20. That's fine. Okay. Like, this is like this is a nerf to the buff of further buffs of what Shield Slam can do. And don't get me wrong, like there's still a lot of things Shield Slam can do, and it's going to still be one of your top damaging abilities. That's fine. Best Serve Cold. Revenge is now 10%. Revenge damage is now increased by 10%, was 20, and 30% when free was 50. The 2050 is currently what it is on live, but with the things like barbaric training and seismic reverberations being easy accesses in the class tree, it makes sense for this nerf for Best Serve Cold, so that way you're not stacking up stupid amounts of revenge damage. Very targeted, very nice. Nothing too wild. Like, there's no sweet... Like, so far, there's been no massively sweeping changes where you're like, oh, crap. Like, this is problematic. Very targeted, very good, and even in some cases, like, they've been a combination of nerf buffs so far, right? Unnerving Focus now grants 50% rage generation was 60. This is also a fair nerf. I'm okay with this because of the new Blood Surge. In all honesty, with the Blood Surge and the Bleed builds going on, you're gaining more rage than you are currently live with Banner, and affecting 50% rage generation while having things like War Machine, all the bleeds going, and everything, 50% is still a lot. Like, it's still going to be a lot, and you're not necessarily going to notice that 10%. 60 was probably overkill. Show of Force. Thunderclap damage is now 20% increase instead of 25. This is when you hit Revenge. This is the conduit. When you hit Revenge, your next Thunderclap deals more damage. Honestly, that's fine. The nerfs that they're doing are the nerfs to the buffs versions, right? We're seeing very little nerfs to the core abilities, right? We've only seen one for Revenge. It's not like they're saying, hey, Revenge and Shield Slam. They're not going through and just devastating the class. Really like this. Booming Voice now generates 30 rage, was 40. That's fine. With the amount of booming voices you're going to be getting with Thunderlords, don't worry about it. Rend. Now this is a big one. Initial damage reduced to 32% of attack power, was 64, and the periodic damage reduced to 17, was 23. Now we see these, and you're like, okay. Rend, the initial damage, that's sizable nerf, but you're not dealing Rend's initial damage that much, aside from when you're spreading it with Thunderclap. But it's the big periodic damage. This is what we're looking at, and it's only a 5% nerf. Nothing to worry about, we're fine. Execute damage reduced by 8%. There's another base ability to reduce, but very small amounts, very targeted, no big aura buffs or no big sweeps, and of course we have Shield Charge no longer has a minimum range. Honestly, if they're going to take a spec and rein it in, this is how I want to see it done. This makes a lot of sense to me. There's some things that don't make sense to me, like I said. Bitter Immunity, I don't understand this at all. Like, this, I'm absolutely boggled. If you can comment down below the best reason you got for why warriors can't have a 3-minute bleed clear. In all honesty, if I was looking at bitter immunity and the only thing it cleared was bleeds, I'd probably take it more times. I'd probably talent into it more than the disease, curse, and poisons one when the game goes live. Bleeds, to me, as a Prot Warrior, and anybody who's played Prot Warrior for long periods of time, suck on Prot Warrior. They're not fun to deal with at all. It's terrible. I would rather have a 3-minute bleed clear than a 3-minute poison, disease, and whatever clear. Absolutely. 20% health reduce. Like, the 20% health is nice, but it's not why you're taking this. You're not taking this for a 3-minute health pot. We have access to impending victory. We don't need a 3-minute health pot. Like, we have a 30%. Like, what is it? 30? Like a 30% health, the 30% maximum health pot every 25 seconds. I'm not taking bitter immunity for the healing. Like, I'm not. If I'm taking bitter immunity for the healing, I'm already completely fucked. Doesn't make sense to me whatsoever. This one I don't get. We'll never get it. A lot of these I like and I understand, and they're fine. This is easy ways to rein this in. In all honesty, like I said, really good job at the way they're reining in Prot Warrior, but as well, there's some very interesting buffs that we're going to have to go in and see. Shield Charge having no minimum range. Chef's kiss. Love to see it. Spike Shield, I really like the idea of causing high threat with this. I actually really do. Shield block is not a problem anymore in Dragonflight with the way it's currently being built. So you're not reliant on something like Reprisal just to be able to stay alive. You're always going to have shield block as long as you're not totally screwing it up. Very, very nice. The heroic throw having a 3-second cooldown, I don't get. Titanic, I get. Heroic, I don't get. But yeah, there's some weirdness to this. The biggest one is I'm definitely gonna champion for bitter immunity to clear bleeds again. You can take the rest off, I don't even give a shit. Let me clear bleeds every 3 minutes. Because I'm actually honestly thinking of becoming a Dark Iron Dwarf on my Warrior just to clear bleeds every 2 minutes. Because it is that good when you're playing a Prot Warrior, because you have no other ways to deal with it. Not to mention Necrotic. And this doesn't even deal with stuff like Necrotic, right? So that, like, there's a more powerful racial ability in the game and a lesser cooldown that does more. And it gives you a massive strength buff. I don't get this. Yeah. But everything else I like. What do you guys think about Prot Warrior and Dragonflight? I am still insanely excited for it. Let's go. Have yourselves a good one, and happy tanking.